for somebody that's tuning in right now and their primary goal, at least to start, is to lose weight, given what we've talked about to this point, how would you modify things fasting and outside of fasting for somebody to really kickstart losing weight?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to train our bodies to fast, and we want to know, as when you are on your fast, starting your fasting journey, knowing why you're fasting is so incredibly helpful, because it helps you start to take all of your food and compress it into the eating window. So let me tell you, let me explain the answer to that through a really cool interaction that I had with a man that was 300 pounds this summer. He came to me and he asked me to help him because he was like, I'm dying. I'm metabolically so unhealthy. I'm dying and I need your help. And when we broke down where his hurdles were, he had a massive food addiction problem. And it was to the standard American diet and drinking lots of soda all day long. So I knew if I took soda away, I knew if I started to make diet changes, I was just going to be another way that he was going to fail at another diet. So what I told him to do is just take all his food and start to work to compress it into an 8-hour eating window. And what we did is push his breakfast back an hour. And then after a week of that, we pushed his breakfast back another hour. And then by a month of pushing the breakfast back hour by hour, we started to get him into this 8-hour eating window, leaving 16 hours for fasting. In that 8-hour eating window, I want to point out, he drank like 10 sodas. He ate buffalo wings. Like, he ate the bad diet that got him to 300 pounds. But just by taking his food and putting it into this eating window, he dropped 13 pounds that first month. So then the next month, we started to work a little bit on his food. I started to have him add in protein, still keeping him at 8-hour eating window. And then he dropped another 9 pounds. Then by the third month, we were able to start to look at soda. So I tell you all that study. Within 3 months, by the way, he dropped 40 pounds from we barely touched his food. We just worked on his eating window. So if you want to lose weight, I really feel like the first thing we've got to look at is when you eat, not what you eat. Now, I'm not telling you you have free license to eat whatever you want. But the way that our food system is right now, it has us all addicted to these high inflammatory foods. So if you're struggling to make the food change, let's start with the timing change first. Now, beyond that, there are foods that make you more hungry that you should probably avoid. And if you avoid them in your eating window, you will find that fasting gets easier and easier, and you will get metabolically healthier quicker and quicker. The number one food that I think everybody needs to change is bad oils. We need to get off the canola, the corn, the cottonseed. Those oils stay in your body. When you eat French fries at a restaurant done in vegetable oil, sitting in that rancid vegetable oil for weeks, and you eat those fries, that oil actually stays in your body. It's a debate anywhere from a year to 2 years. A lot of the fatty acid experts are saying it goes up to 2 years. So, that is the first shift that needs to happen. We got to get the good oils. And then the second thing, and I love the keto movement, but if you don't want to count macros, just make a shift over to nature's carbohydrates and get off the breads, the cakes, the pastas, the desserty things, and lean into the fruits, the vegetables, the potatoes. Those are fantastic. And the third food change I would make would be, I would really focus on getting the toxins out, the NutraSweets, the artificial ingredients. All of those foods are what we know as obesogens. They block up the insulin receptors, so you want to get those out. If you take those 3 food changes and you start to gradually compress your eating window till you get to this 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating, I have not seen somebody not lose weight that way. That I actually think we will overturn the metabolic mess we're in right now if everybody just did that.
I love that. And when you talked about the oils building up in the system, it reminded me of something from your book that I really loved. The fact that sugar builds up in the system. And this happens primarily in the muscle, in the liver, and in the fat. So talk about how over time, somebody who's not aware and they're eating a standard American diet, they're gonna become this vessel for sugar, and then how that can turn around when they begin fasting. I've heard Jason Fung talk about this previously on the show, and you're the only other person I've heard talk about it this way, and I just find it really helpful for me, and I'm sure other people.
Yeah. I think fasting for me is there's a rhythm to it, whether you're a man or a woman, and it should become enjoyable building a fasting lifestyle. When we look at the nutrition world, we have a lot of rigidity with it, and we have a lot of like have tos, and it becomes this burden we carry when we're like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to like start to make some food changes. But what we want to look at is when we look at ourselves in the mirror and we see fat and we villainize it and we tell ourselves why can't we succeed at a diet when everybody else is succeeding? What I want to start to answer this question with that's so important to me is that we stop saying bad things to us in the mirror and villainizing all of that fat, because your intelligent body was so smart that it said, we have all this extra glucose. We've got insulin that's not able to push the glucose into the cells. So we have to store this excess somewhere. So I have a choice. But this is literally what your body's doing. I have a choice. I could store it in the organs, but that's going to hurt our survival, or I can store it as fat. And if I store it as fat, it won't hurt our survival as deep. And this is why when you look in that mirror, you got to thank that fat. And you got to be like, okay, all that fat is I stored something there, and now I want to unstore it. Now I want it to come out of storage. And that's what fasting does, is it tells your body, hey, glucose isn't coming in, blood sugar's going down, ketones are going up. Why don't you go find what you stored years ago? And while you're finding that and burning it and burning fat, I'm not going to raise glucose so that can happen. So that to me is the magic of what's going on for fat burning when you go into these fasted states. But I want to say one other thing about glucose and sugar that's so detrimental, especially to aging. There's a process called glycation. And glycation is where all that excess glucose that has nowhere to go, it can't be pushed into the cell because you're insulin resistant, gets glommed onto the red blood cell. And the red blood cell's job is to carry oxygen through the body. And if you create this glycation, you create this gumming of these glucose molecules on that red blood cell, what's now going to happen is you're going to get less oxygen to every part of your body, including your brain. What that means long-term is you're going to age faster, Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, you're more prone to diabetes. And how you know if you've got this glycation going on is you look at hemoglobin A1C. Is it under 5? If it's under 5, you're not in a glycated state. If it's over 5, you've got some glycation going on. So it's multifaceted, but the body has to adapt to that extra sugar. And those are the two major adaptations.
Great explanation there.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I want to come back to the weight loss piece. For somebody that is trying to lose weight, we got into a lot of great stuff there, but is there any fat burning after somebody breaks the fast? So we know that if we stop eating dinner, we're going to go into a fasted state until we decide to eat the next day. So we can skip breakfast, we can stay in fat burning. But what if we have lunch? Do we ever get a chance to burn fat again until we fast after dinner and have enough time to really get into that fasted state?
Well, this is a great question. This is best explained by looking at metabolic switching. And I will tell you what I'm seeing recently that has really blown me away, is that once you get somebody fat adapted, so fat adapted means you eat a meal, your blood sugar goes up, your body uses that glucose for energy. Within a couple of hours, the blood sugar starts to go down and you start to switch over into ketosis. What we're seeing is people are switching over into fat adaptation faster and faster and faster. The more they fast, the more they go in and out with these fasts. So because of that, you've trained, it's like training a dog. You've trained the dog that, okay, when blood sugar goes down, you make ketones. And we're seeing that people go in and out of ketosis, even in their eating window, more and more and more because they're fat adapted. So the first trek is to get yourself to understand what ketosis feels like, to understand what it feels like to be in this fat burning stage. The second trick is to start practicing in and out of fasting. So we've talked a lot about that. The third piece, after you've done that for some time, is you'll see it's hard to keep yourself out of ketosis. And to answer your question, that's where we see people keep weight off for good, because their body always wants to go back to ketosis, and it's always burning fat, even though they just ate a meal 2 hours ago. So that would be one thing. The second thing is food is not the enemy here. If you eat the right food, it's nourishing your body, which is priming every single metabolic marker in your body and making it easier to go in and out of this metabolic switching. And then it's all about blood sugar management. I've put CGMs on before, and I thought, could I go like a week where I don't really have my blood sugar spike? And I can, and it looks like a lot of meat and a lot of fat. And then adding that to my fasting window. So it's when we start to go into the carbs that we're going to get more of an elevation of blood sugar and pulling us out of ketosis. So you could, like carnivore fasting. We did this in my community where people just ate meat and they fasted 17 hours, and they did that for 5 days. And literally that was the most weight loss that we ever saw our community lose in that period of time. And largely because, carnivore is a form of keto, and yet people were eating steaks and getting great results. So those are some nuances.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
So if you want to lose weight, I really feel like the first thing we've got to look at is when you eat, not what you eat. Coffee may really help one person elongate their fast, and it may actually break the fast.